Good morning or afternoon, everyone. Thrilled to have you here for our Weatherhead webinar called Clicked by Path to ETA. My name is Jackie Sanders, and we're here today to answer the questions that many of you are interested in. It sounds great to become an entrepreneur and especially to own your own business, but to move forward in a way that is going to ensure your success, you need to ask yourself three questions. And that is, one, is business ownership the right path for me? Two, if it is, how am I going to pursue it? And specifically for today, is ETA, entrepreneurship through acquisition, the way to do it? Is it the right way for me? Because there's different avenues to becoming a business owner. And then number three, if that answer is yes, is what do I do now? How do I pursue it in a way where I am most knowledgeable? I know what I'm doing, and I know the path to buying a company, and I know what to do when I have owned that company. And so as the executive director of the Weatherhead ETA Center here at Case Western Reserve University, I thought it's a great opportunity for us to ask some of our students how they have gone about that process of identifying if they want to be a business owner, figuring out if ETA is right for them, and then moving forward on that path. So I am here with my colleagues. We have Edwige Rawagaswana, who is our intern this summer, and she's a master's student in our business analytics program. And she will be helping MC with me as we get to the Q&A at the end of our 30 minutes together. She will ask you some questions. So if you do have a question, please note it in the comments section, and she will be monitoring that over the course of our conversation. And we will then take it from there. And with that, I am really thrilled to introduce Simon Kotkar. Simon and I met about a year ago when he was literally on the path inquiring about how might he learn more about ETA to answer those questions. And Simon has a really interesting background. He comes from generations of entrepreneurs. I think it flows through his blood. He's not a Clevelander. He comes from the other side of the border. He lives in Ontario, Canada, and he is currently a AVP of loan origination at Peak Hill Capital. So, Simon,
Yes, Jane.
first it's so great to have you, and
Thank you.
I would love for you to tell us more about who you are and where this
Yes.
itch to be an entrepreneur came from. And you've already been a business owner. So in some respects, you've already done the dream, so to speak. But the path has changed over the course of your years in your career. And I'd love for you to talk about that.
Thank you, Jackie and Edwige. Pleasure to join you both today and the rest of our attendees to have this discussion, and hopefully it's of some value to everyone here. Again, for background, from Toronto, Ontario, Canada, about 4.5 hours from Cleveland, so a bit of a drive, at least on a round trip basis for sure. But basically, originally kind of economics, business major, pivoted over to kind of the kinesiology space. So kind of think exercise science. I thought I was going on a physiotherapy route a number of years ago. We had a family business from about 1982, sheet metal fabrication, where we're making products for Fortune 100s based out of the States. In the oil and petrochemical space and the telecom space. The telecoms, they were more Canadian clients. But basically, while I was finishing my undergrad degree in England, our general manager of the family business went away on medical leave, and we knew he wouldn't return. So did a small summer business program at a school local to where our operations were, then slotted into the operations there in 2017 and started to learn about the business, really just kind of soaked it all in, especially for the first year, and then pivoted from there to overseeing and managing the managers, essentially. So we had about 25 to 30 folks while I was there, and I would oversee and work with the production manager, our interim GM, and our HR/controller personnel, we'll say. Can't think of a great title. I think HR head of HR, let's say. And so the big value add there was implementing a different management style. So whereas we were micromanaging
Hmm.
apparently under old regime, we're now, trusting and respecting the tacit knowledge and the expertise that was there. So ran that out, kind of revitalized the business from a digital marketing standpoint, inside, outside sales, expanded capabilities. Top line was very sticky. It was a very mature end user market. Learned quickly that the path to growth there was going to be inorganic, so through acquisitions. Being in my 20s and trying to get my hands on just one business, I didn't have the confidence to integrate another, set of operations in a different location, take on the financing risk, take on the operational risk, the cultural integration risk. And so just tried to make the best of what we had. And going into COVID, we had a 18% net margin after tax, um, or perhaps before tax. No, after tax. And that was the best of the handful of years that I was there, and probably best for almost a decade that following, or
Yeah.
prior, I should say.
So Simon, so I know we've talked in the past there, as you were going through managing the company and doing digital and so forth, you realized that maybe the time for this business was coming to a close because of market
Yeah,
conditions. And
yeah,
so then you started to think more about what's next for me.
yeah. When I came in, my father, who was elderly, wanted to close the business. I was young and ambitious and wanted to learn, so I tried to make the most of what I could with that opportunity and did optimize it. But we were doing a sixth of the revenue that we were doing during peak oil in 2008. Then COVID took another two-thirds of revenue from there. So we were doing 10% of peak oil revenues by year one of COVID. And that's where it was very explicitly like understood that the better days were behind us and needed to pursue exit opportunities. So I went to the States to pursue education, do my MBA down in New York at Columbia University, Columbia Business School, specializing in value investing and real estate investing. And we exited via sale. All the employees were retained on their employment terms and contracts to another strategic family business
Mhm.
owner, before I pivoted to corporate and working in the real estate space as I
Mhm.
am at this time.
So
Um,
it sounds like this was, an amazing education and understanding how to run a business, understanding the gravity of it and with the
yes.
employees. And how did that plus earning an MBA kind of now change your trajectory or maintain it? Say, okay, now I run a business to a degree and I'm ambitious, I want to take it to the next level. What is going through your thoughts in terms of what you need to do next and how you get closer to that goal?
Having been very hands-on for a handful of years there with the business and seeing it through a steady state and then a declining state, it can take a toll on you, especially when there's
Hmm.
you're emotionally invested in the business, you're
Sure.
financially invested in the business, and the people as well you're emotionally invested in. And everybody wants a growing business, and not always is that going to be the case. Every business is on its own individual life cycle, and the when this is going towards decline, you have to find your next chapter. And so for me, school was that. Going into corporate was that, to understand, do I want to go one of a number of avenues? Working in corporate for a few years, you also understand the limitations there and where we had sold something and have let's call it capital to allocate to invest. Um, and I have some experience there and some interest there and have enjoyed my role as a business owner as opposed to just another corporate employee. Like when I started in corporate, we had 50, 60 employees. We now have 200. As it scales, it becomes a bit more bureaucratic. You become more of a number than a person. And so that grates on me in particular, I would say. And so that's where I start to ask the question of like, what else is there? And having gone to school where I did for my MBA, feel like I had figured out the real estate side of things and the public equity side of things. There was a piece missing though that I think we'll discuss
Hmm.
here.
Well, and for those who don't know you, one of the things that has struck me about you is that you are someone who um, stays present and you're always looking to learn. And so you went to a Berkshire Hathaway shareholder meeting, and we'll tell everyone about what happened there and the outcome.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. Just as a quick arc, that summer business program that I did a number of years ago before the family business, I was introduced to Benjamin Graham through our professor there, who is essentially the professor that taught Warren Buffett at Columbia. That's the inspiration for why I went to Columbia in the end. Last year, I felt that might be Buffett's last, and I wanted to make sure it was my first, so there was overlap, and I could learn, you know, be in the same room with the gentleman, if possible, for a
Mhm.
moment, learn from him directly. And where in the retail space, if you go, if you ask someone about Warren Buffett, what do they know? What does he do? Most people would say a stock market investor, and they wouldn't be wrong. And especially the way, if you go to the bookstore, all the books on Buffett, most of them are about his prowess when it comes to public stock market investing. The thing they don't tell you is he's essentially running a private equity enterprise, that a lot of the reason he's able to do this is he has these operating businesses, a railway, a utility company, and an insurance business, that are essentially these, low EBITDA margin, high yield, boring businesses that spit off a lot of cash flow that then he has to do something with, buy real estate, buy public equities, buy minority interests, or entire private equity operations, private companies. And so seeing him throw up the source of operating cash flow and it really sink in where it's coming from, you realize public equity investing, stock market investing, real estate investing, those are what I would now call downstream investments. That's what you invest in
Mhm.
once you have made money. You need to own a business that is taxed efficiently and spits off a lot of cash flow in order to be able to have enough money to feed your family and worry about those other kinds of investments. So that's the other part of the triangle, let's call it, the third leg of the stool, that
Mhm.
I felt that I didn't learn about formally. And that's where I began starting to look around North America for who could teach me that, now that I'm on the wrong side of my MBA. I'm finished. The
Never
formal
finished.
education stuff. Exactly, never finished. So I can get into how I found Case then, for
Well, I
for
want
those that
to,
are wondering.
so just
Yeah, tell me.
to reinforce, so we look kind of across the arc of your career.
Yeah.
You started in a family business, you learned that there's a lot of responsibility. Sometimes it's great, sometimes it's not. It's oftentimes you don't have control over everything, and so there's a time to step away, and there's a time also to dive deeper. So what I'm hearing is understanding that was seminal to you moving then on to the next step, which was learning, getting an MBA in your case.
Mhm.
For someone, it could be something else. Um, but what you've learned is that in your ambition to create legacy, it ultimately it's about having control through owning an operating business, and that is kind of the core. And yeah, so now it's like, okay, what do I do next? And how did you go about figuring out what do I do next?
Yeah. Um, for me, it generally starts with reading. That, I think I've spoken with others, read a lot last year. Dozens of books, as we've discussed at some points. Um, and that will always open you up to new ideas. There's only so many like core fundamental ideas that you need to come across when it comes to business, and if you read broadly within business, you'll get to them within the year. And this was one of them. I bookended the Buffett meeting with the Berkshire Hathaway meeting with a number of books in the space, with researching, who is teaching acquisition, entrepreneurship in North
Mhm.
America. There's a few for-profit groups that are looking to take a lot of money from people, hopefully provide a lot of value to them, but I don't know if they do. But there are a few opportunities, such as the one that Case provides, and I don't even know if it's matched by anyone else in North America. So got in contact with, I believe, yourself, with Scott Lowry, who's also very fundamental to the program, and I think Professor Reid Tiletson, who's America's now first homegrown PhD in entrepreneurship through acquisition, and from Case, his PhD, that is. He has a book in the space that opened my mind further to aspects of ETA. I wasn't so familiar with franchising, for instance, and he's definitely opened my eyes to that. Another one of your professors was franchised in one of the like seminal texts when it comes to entrepreneurship through acquisition, and it kind of just became self-fulfilling. A lot of
Mhm.
all the roads lead to Cleveland in Case, it seems.
Well, our reputation is something we're very proud of. Case has been invested in creating credible buyers to purchase companies for over 30 years.
Yeah.
And so it's something we have certainly dived deep into. And Northeast Ohio is special in that realm as well. We've just done a tremendous number of deals at this level, small and mid cap. And so have the
Yes.
advisory network, the capital, kind of the source of companies at this size to be very, very proficient at it. So, and
Absolutely.
we're certainly grateful that you found us as a destination to continue your education.
Yes.
What do you, case aside, what do you feel like was very important for you to understand and learn to go from, okay, I understand I want to buy a company. What are the questions that you were asking and how did you read books? So you started to understand what it takes. But what has been the process of as you continue to answer those three questions I talked about at the beginning, how I move forward to actually buying a
Yeah.
company?
Yeah. I mean, you can't, I think you need peer support, peer feedback. You need to see other people that are doing it so that
Hmm.
you have somebody to help. There's somebody to help you. If you don't have community, you don't have that. You need folks around you that have also done it before. They've entered, they've run, they've exited, hopefully on all legs successfully. And so you need to learn from those folks. That exists, when you have professors who have done, you have professors who are practitioners, essentially. So really, I've run a family business where, you're at the top of the structure, the organizational structure. And in our case, we lived or not we lived, but I lived where our business was, which was 2 hours east of Toronto in a small town. So it's a fairly lonely experience when there's really not too many people you can turn to internally. And I don't think there's enough development personally without peer networks, peer supports in this space. And so
Hmm.
where you can seek out the formal education, in my case, I audited the program as opposed to enrolling in it. As a working professional, that worked best for me. And beyond that, yes, you need the formal education, I would say, in some capacity, reading. So that can come through courses, that can come through books, but you need peer and mentor support. So putting that together. And then through that, I think you gain a bit more credibility. Like you need some sort of social capital, I think, in order to actually do transactions. There's a lot of tire kickers who don't know what they're doing. They don't have capital. They don't have support. And business brokers, M&A advisors, boutique investment bankers, they're not going to want to take or return those calls. So you need a self-reinforcing and self-perpetuating kind of
Hmm.
ecosystem. It's
Hmm.
not just a book alone won't get you where you need to go. A course
Right.
alone, won't do it. It has to be the whole package.
Right. So one of the things that we talk a lot about at Case is becoming a credible buyer.
Yes.
And it's because you're going to need to convince not only a banker to support you to get a loan, people finance in a multitude of different ways, but probably even more intrinsically is when you're doing a deal at this size, it is a very personal deal with that seller. This is their
Yeah.
baby, which they've likely spent their entire career on building, and they don't want someone else to drive it into the. They want to see it succeed and their legacy to continue. And so having those relationships, understanding how to navigate the system is probably just as important as understanding the numbers behind it.
Yes. Yes.
And so just to briefly share with others who don't know the programs that we offer here and how we built the ecosystem at the ETA Center is there is the ETA certificate, which you went through, which was 3 courses that are offered in the evenings. But also we have executive level workshop, which you also did. But so how did that
Mhm.
taking those courses help to kind of put you in the room, and show up to meet the community?
Yeah, I mean, at least, in particular, the in-person workshop, as you mentioned, that required me to be there for that executive education. The others were kind of hybrid, at least in my case. But I, took some business meetings, let's call them, as a result of them. They, especially if you're coming from outside of town, it seems like you become a bit more credible if you're willing to jump in the car, cross a border, to take some meetings, have some coffee chats. So that putting that work in goes a long way, it seems. The courses, I mean, the professors themselves, like they'll provide the mentorship, it seems, and it has been my experience. They have resources and folks that they are happy to connect you with. It seems it has been my experience, I should say.
Hmm.
Um, and so being present, being active, being engaged, going the extra mile, it's definitely been an interesting experience thus far, and a very kind of welcoming environment and atmosphere, I would say.
Hmm. And so we in here in Cleveland, we not only have, the education offerings by the university, but also we are networked with other ETA communities, notably Promise Partners, which is a completely separate entity. And as you know, last January I took the buyer preparation exec ed course as a student,
Yeah.
and one of the things that I thought that's really struck me is that all the students, we came kind of independently, and then we became this kind of posse, and we've had the pleasure to see each other at other events, which are going on all the time, throughout the year. And that it just kind of initiated that connectivity beyond the class, itself, which
Yes.
I know personally has been really rewarding and energizing, because we talk to each other about how we've advanced over the course of the year, from not knowing a whole lot about the mechanics of buying a company to, building a plan and understanding where we're going to go next. And so that has
Yes.
been exciting. And so same for you.
Yeah, absolutely. Like, I mentioned ecosystem just in passing earlier, and that's part of what I was referring to was kind of the Promise Partners organization and network, and the fact that there's this kind of virtuous cycle between Case, Weatherhead, and the ETA program that the school offers, and then as a follow-on for those interested and where it's appropriate, the Promise Partners community, where, like as you mentioned, a lot of us met in person for the first time back in January, and then now we've had monthly meetings, quarterly meetings where we're touching base, we're getting to maintain and build on the relationship that we started and initiated earlier in the year, and it's been great. Like, again, not only do you have academic peers, let's say, from that program in January, now you have other peers that you're getting to meet and mingle with and get feedback from and get guidance from, get mentorship from, because
Mhm.
if it takes a village to take it, to raise a child, it takes an ecosystem to buy a business, let's say.
Yes, absolutely. Like, entrepreneurship is not a solo sport, and you have, I think you need to enjoy it too. Enjoy
Hmm.
the connectivity and the collaboration and the recognition that you don't need to know everything,
Yes.
but you do
Yes.
need to be in the room to find the people who are going to help you along the way. And
Hmm.
that has been one of the top learnings I've had in my role leading the center, is that as I um, as I see different people going through different stages to buying a company, there's certain qualities that, like, that person's going to be successful,
Hmm.
because when they're in the room, Simon, you come to Cleveland as if it's 40 minutes away, not 4 hours away. And that is a special quality which I think will support your success.
Thank you, Jack.
Also, looking to continue to learn and to also to know where you want to go.
Yeah,
When we talk about the credible buyer plan, you need to know where you want to land to some degree,
yeah,
with being
yeah.
flexible that it might not work out in
Mhm.
that direction, but there's a commonality and there's, to go in another direction, which is a good fit for you. So
Absolutely.
any words of advice as we kind of close out our conversation today that you would say to someone who's just at the early stages of saying, hey, I'm interested, but it seems terrifying, but
Mhm.
also exciting.
I would say that it needs to be only as intimidating as you want it to be. Um, there are businesses that you can purchase for next to nothing. There are businesses that would require many, many millions and billions of dollars. You have to find, everyone is a fish. You have to find the right size pond for yourself. There are only a handful of books, I would say, at this time that cover ETA and are credible, I would say, that are authoritative. So it wouldn't take long for someone to get up to speed with, is this right for me? Look in the mirror, understand like what do I want for my life? What do I want for my family? What do I want from an income and security standpoint? Am I getting that from corporate? Can I get that from franchising? Can I get that from buying a Main Street business or a lower middle market business? Something that for $250,000 business value or a $20 million business value, anywhere in between. Who can support me? Family, friends, investors, lenders. What resources do I need? What
Mhm.
networks are there that I can tap into? Meditate on this, journal on this, sleep on it, but also reach out to people and yeah, just it's a introspective journey, and I would encourage people to do the little work that it requires to answer the question for themselves.
Mhm. And do you feel that to what degree do you have to be all in to make it worth pursuing?
It's a good question. I'm probably trying to figure that out at this time as well. I think right now, I have a toe in or I have a foot in. I'm considering the States, I'm considering Canada, I'm considering franchising, I'm considering uh, you know, more typical businesses of a certain size.
Mhm.
And at some point, like there are people, I guess, who have done part-time searches. I did part-time search, let's say, when I was building a portfolio of multifamily real estate while working corporate. So that was possible for me. And then outsourcing that management, that might be, possible for some franchising models that are semi-absentee and absentee. For some operating businesses, that's not going to be the case. Like especially from a credible buyer standpoint, the seller will want the buyer to be all in, I imagine, from what I hear, by the time you issue an LOI, a letter of intent to purchase the business. And so there is a pivot point for most businesses of consider like reasonable size, let's say a couple $1 million or and beyond, where you need to be full in, but you could probably start part time. You might then stretch out the journey to buying
Mhm. In terms
if
of
you do that
the
though.
exploration phase. Yeah. And
Exactly.
and just to level set, generally from the time someone starts to look for a business, it on average takes a year and a half to 2 years. So it is a significant venture. And there are many different paths and it's a very personal experience. Um, with that, we are coming at the end of the half hour. So really, really appreciate Simon you being on this today and sharing with us your experience and what you've learned and how you've done so. And uh, we will be in touch with everyone with some details, information about how you can continue on your own personal journey in a way that works well for you. And so I want to thank you, and we will see you all next week. We have our next speaker, Eben Daniel, who has taken a different path from Simon and how he's navigated entrepreneurship and how acquisition entrepreneurship fits into his career. So thank you everyone for joining us today, and we will see you same time next week, July 29th. Thank you.
Thank you.